We're going to move into looking at how we can make a budget. A lot of you have heard about what a budget is, might have heard the word, but you might not know exactly what it talks about. So today we're going to look at some simple budgets we can discuss. A budget is a plan of how to effectively use your income to cover necessary expenses. So it's actually looking ahead and trying not to spend more than you're actually making. So with that, there comes three words. Income is the money that you're actually making through getting paid for your job, babysitting, anything like that. Expenses are what you actually have to spend your money on. And expenses can come in many categories, but we're talking about two here right now. A regular expense is something that you know that you have to pay each and every month, like your rent, your cell phone bill. Variable are things that can change from month to month. And savings is simply just that. How much money you're putting away and saving for something. Maybe you want to buy a new car or a new computer. So we'll look at these examples and work through some budgeting. So example one, we have Janice, and she has the incomes and the expenses during the past month. All this is asking us to do is to identify these as either income, money coming in, or expenses, money coming out, and talk about them being regular or variable. And the expenses, talk about them if they're recurring, which means they happen every month. Variable is that they come out every so often, and maybe the amount varies from month to month. And unexpected are things like, whoa, didn't see that coming at all. So we're going to go through the list first. We're going to talk about if it's an income or an expense. Then we'll go back and classify them. So the first one, paycheck. That's definitely income. That's money that comes in. So we got this. Your gas bill, or that's going to go as to expense. That's something you have to pay. Cell phone, that's an expense. New boots, definitely an expense. Paycheck, well, we already know that's an income. Don't need to list it twice. Birthday gift from grandparents, that's income. So we'll just say some birthday money. Car loan payment. So your car loan is an expense. New hard hat for work to replace the hat you lost. So the hard hat is here. It's an expense. And eating out, when you eat out, you have to pay money. So that's another expense. So we've labeled them as income or expenses. Now we're going to go back and we're going to look at the incomes first. And it says income, talk about if this income's regular or if it's something that changes from month to month, the amount you get paid. So on a paycheck, this should probably be regular. It's money that's coming in every month. Your birthday money, that's definitely a variable expense. It only happens once a year, your birthday money, and maybe your grandparents give you money one year, maybe they give you a different amount the next year or none at all. So that's a variable income. Now when we're looking at expenses, it's saying talk to them as recurring, so something that's the same every month. Variable is that you probably pay it every month, the amount changes all the time, and unexpected is something like, oh, didn't see that coming. So your gas bill, and I'm assuming this is talking about for your vehicle, this probably happens every month, but depending on how much you drive, this amount probably varies. It's probably not always the $34.86 it says there. Your cell phone bill. Now this one could be different depending on your plan. I would consider this guy being probably, most people are on plans nowadays, probably the same amount each month. This is probably a recurring expense. Although if you're someone that goes over your data a lot, you know that you're going to have to pay it every month, but the amount might vary. So this might be a variable expense for you. New boots. I don't think that you really get new boots every month. So this is probably unexpected. Went to the store, saw them, wanted them. It's not happening each and every month. Car loan. Car loan is going to be something that's recurring. You're going to pay the same amount to the bank or whoever you borrowed the money from every month. Now the hard hat, saying you got it to replace one you lost. So this was definitely an unexpected expense. If you lost one, now you have to go and find another one. And the last one, eating out. Like most people, they probably have a few times in the month that they go to eat, but what they eat probably varies. So this would be a variable amount. You know what's going to happen, but you just don't know how much you're actually going to get, which restaurant you're going to go to, or so on. So just knowing the difference between an income and expense, and knowing when we start to budget, if it happens each and every month, like the cell phone and the car loan payment, this is something you can look forward to actually planning for. So we're going to talk about Carlos. And Carlos made a list of his income and expenses, and it's important that we see he's saying for 1 month. So in 1 month, this is what Carlos is doing. Saying, so he has semi-monthly paychecks. So semi-monthly means every 2 weeks, okay, twice in the month. And then his expenses are listed here in the right-hand column. Now, question A says he plans to put any extra income he can into a savings account. How much money does he put into that savings account? So we have to figure out how much did he actually make and how much did he actually spend. So all we have to do is total up these columns. So we'll talk about some totals here. So if you add up his 2 paychecks, his income in that month is $1,079.84 if we add it up. And you could do it in your calculator. I just did the work ahead of time. For his expenses, if we added up all of those expenses, he spent $985.90. So you can see he actually spent less than he made, so he'll have some money to save. And saying how much money does he put into savings? Well, all we have to do for his savings is subtract those two numbers. He made $1,079.84. He spent $985.90. So if we subtract those, each and every month, remember we're talking about monthly numbers here, he can save $93.94 each month. So that goes a little further now. He's saying if he can save that in a month, how much can he save in a year? Well, if he's actually taking $93.94 each month, there's 12 months in a year. If I multiply those two, he could save $1,127.28 per year, barring that he doesn't have any extra expenses if he just kept the same budget. Now it's saying, what percentage of income does this actually represent that he's saving? So we'll go back to the monthly numbers again. Now percentages, there's always out of a total. And up here we could see his total in the month was $1,079.84. And he's going to save $93.94 a month. So if I divided these, how much he saves out of the total amount, and then times by 100, I'm going to get his percentage on how much he actually is saving each and every month, the percentage he's saving. So I'll show this on the calculator to see how the numbers show up. We got 93.94. Dividing that by the 1,079.84, multiplying by 100, we get this big string, but we could round that to one decimal place and say that he's saving about 8.7% each month. So not too bad. If we take it one step further and see what Carlos actually wants to budget for, he's saying, you know what, Carlos wants to buy a new computer. He thinks it's going to cost about $1,500. It's saying, how much more would he need to save per month to be able to afford it? Suggest one way he could do this. So right now, all we know is that per month, he's saving $93.94 per month. But he wants a $1,500 computer. So we're going to have to say, well, if he wants to save $1,500 in 12 months, I'm going to divide that by 12 and say, how much does he actually have to save each month? So 1,500 divided by 12 means he has to save about $125 a month. So he's fallen short of what he actually needs. So it says, how much more does he need? Well, if he needs to save $125 a month, and right now he's only saving $93.94, I need to subtract those two numbers. The 125 minus the $93.94, he needs to save an additional $31.06 a month. So he needs to save that much more each month. So we have to somehow look at his budget and saying, where can this actually come out of? If he needs to save that much and he really wants this computer, it says make a suggestion on what he can do. So we look at his expenses. Rent, I can't do anything about that unless I decide to move for a year just to get cheaper rent. Maybe he could take in a roommate to save up on his rent. His food, this is definitely something he has control out of or over. He could buy cheaper food at the grocery store, maybe some no-name food. Entertainment, this is definitely another area he could knock down on. Instead of going to the movies or maybe buying new songs on iTunes, he cuts that back. Utilities are probably something that stays steady throughout. Transportation, maybe he's driving his car a lot and that's costing him more gas. Maybe he can start walking or riding a bike. So he can make some cuts there. Clothing, there's another place he could save some money, buy less clothing. The cell phone bill is kind of a tough one. You may or you may not be able to. Usually this is, we said, like a regular recurring payment, but maybe you phone your cell phone company and say, hey, is there anything you can do about my rate that I'm paying? Can you make my plan any cheaper? And sometimes they'll do that for you if you've been a customer long enough. Miscellaneous, we really don't know what's in here, but he could probably make some cuts on some things that are just unexpected expenses as well. So there's a lot of suggestions. We only needed to list one. There's a lot if we just look down the suggest or the expense column to figure out how we can save the additional $31 a month. Now the last example here, we got Rochelle. She's budgeting her income and her expenses. She wants to replace her car in a year, and she thinks she'll be able to sell her old car for $1,500. Assuming she saves any extra income, how much money will she have at the end of this year for a new car? So this is her monthly budget again. Okay, so we're going to go through and we're going to look at these totals. And again, I've totaled them up, so it'll just be less time on the video. If I added up all of her income right now, and assuming that she keeps her tutoring and babysitting constant, she's making $1,650 a month. Now, if I look at her expenses and add up all of these expenses, her expenses total $1,205 per month. So again, good situation here. She's spending less than she's actually making. She's not going into debt. Now she wants to save all the additional money to buy this new car. So we could say, well, she's making $1,650. She's spending $1,205 right now, just in this sample budget. If I subtracted these, she actually could save $445 per month for this new vehicle. And it does say that she wants to save in 1 year. So if that's per month, we could take this number and say, well, 445 times by the 12 months in a year, she could actually end up saving $5,340 in 1 year, assuming that there's no big unexpected expenses. Now this is how much she could save, but the question, if we look back at it, actually says she's going to save that plus she thinks she'll get about $1,500 for her car. So we can now just say, well, if she saves the $5,340 and then sells her car for $1,500, at the end of this year, she could have $6,840 for a new car, assuming that all of her expenses stays the same, her income stays the same, and she gets her $1,500 for her vehicle. So budgeting, we have to look at our money, and one of the key things we need to really try to do is spend less than we actually make. Otherwise, we have to look into getting loans and paying the bank to use their money.